On Monday, she takes a walk with Johnny. On Tuesday, she has a talk with Jim. On Wednesday, she likes to dance with Tommy.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of My Index to Sex. I'm Lynn Ferguson, a big vanilla Scottish woman living in the San Fernando Valley, which is periodically very hot, but rarely in a sexy way. And I'm joined by my pal, Sephe Haven, at one point America's #1 escort. In each episode, Sephe delves into the index box of all of her past clients, and I ask her all the questions everyone wants answered. I'm lying. That's what I should be doing. What I'll actually be doing is assigning the anonymous client on the card a name and clumsily trying to understand a world which is completely foreign to me. Anyway, glad you could join us.
On Thursday, she takes a chance with Tim.
So here's a guy that I think I was annoyed with.
Oh.
I've got a lot of annoyances in the beginning of the B's here. Okay, what should we name him?
All right.
Well, he's from Portland, so should we call him Portland?
So this is a B, and he's from Portland. B for, let's call him Butch. Butch.
Okay.
Right? Butch from Portland.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be careful how I say this. He is a sports announcer. I'm not going to say for which station, but for a major.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Did he have an athletic body, or was he like one of those kind of tubby sports announcers?
I'm going to see. I'm going to read his card and figure. I don't know.
You know, that's the thing that I think is annoying about sports announcers.
What?
Well, you know, when they're very opinionated about sports people, they're like, well, he screwed that up, or look at that. And then you look at the person who's talking about it and you're like, you've never been out on a sporting match in your life. Like, the biggest sport that you're doing is how many donuts can you eat, right? So I'm just wondering whether Butch was like, you know, big buffy Butch or busty Butch.
I know, I'm going to read it, but I do find that sort of true with men and women in general. You know, women are like, oh, I don't look good enough, and I'm fixing up, and I'm doing all this, and they're gorgeous. Women are beautiful, and they smell nice, and they're pretty, and they take good care, and men are like, all right, I'm done. You just crawl out of bed and walk out the door, and you're like,
this is what you get.
this is it, yeah. She's hot. And you're like, you're 80. Stop it. Not that 80 is bad, but it's like they're thinking they're so like, I don't date women in their 50s. They're too old for me. You're 80.
I know.
You know, like,
There used to be this thing. I was talking to somebody about it the other day. Well, you're talking, like, I was working with someone and it was like a really serious script that they were working on. I said, you've got quite a problem on page 3, right? And then I went, oh, and she said, what's the matter? And I said, it's the page 3 thing. So, like, when I was growing up in Scotland and in the UK, right, all the tabloids would have a topless girl on page 3, right? They'd have a girl just like with, you know, like with her hand over her boob where she'd go, lost my bra, that kind of look, oh. And then a hand over her crotch and then found my pants, lost my bra, found my pants. Right, a surprise look. And men would, like, look at her and go, oh, well, you know, she's not for me and blah, blah, blah. And then you'd look at the sort of what it said, it was like Busty Samantha 19, and you're like, what the hell? You guys are like looking at somebody that wouldn't even spit on you and commenting on it. It was such a very weird thing.
That's a really good point, actually. That's how we felt a lot in the business. It used to be a thing when the pickier the man was in terms of what he wanted to do. Oh, she has to be 6 foot tall. She can't be 5'11". She can't be 6'1". She has to be 6 foot tall. And she has to be blonde. And the blonde hair has to come to the middle of her back and not a bit higher, not a bit longer now. And she has to have 3 freckles on her left cheek and so forth. And then you'd get there and he was not only a mean man, but kind of a toady, awful, unkempt, you know, just one of those people that you're like, oh, really get a life.
Did you ever find that there was like days of the week? See, I don't like Tuesdays. I don't know why. Tuesdays are difficult days for me. Like, if something bad's going to happen, this happens on a Tuesday, right? Yeah. Did you find in the escort business that there were certain days where you just go, oh, buckle up, it's a Thursday?
I don't know about the days. I know I got arrested on a Tuesday.
You did? See,
I did.
Tell me about getting arrested.
Oh, God. You don't want to do these cards?
Well, no, we will do the cards, but just this episode here is Butch and getting arrested, because I think that works together.
I don't know. Okay, well, okay. So I was working in LA. Well, this was after the agencies, and there was this thing that came out that was called the internet. Dun, 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 da, da, da. You've got mail. And so, but it freed up a lot because back in the olden days, everything advertised on yellow pages, and that was a phone book. That's where we found our phone numbers. And yes, I'm very old. Wait, let me shift in my chair. And then the internet came out, and you could advertise if you were a girl. You could advertise by paying $25 a month, whereas the yellow pages were $5,000 a month. So you couldn't be independent. So it let you be independent. The one thing you had to be careful of was screening your own calls for safety, because that's what the agencies did. They screened for you. So you had to really learn. And if you were sober, and 50% of the girls were, if you could handle your own stuff and keep tabs. And that's where my these index cards came from, actually. Really? Yeah. So anyway, one night I'm in LA, and this guy called me to see me, and what was his name? Robert Morgan, he told me his name was.
Right.
And he said he worked for a real estate company called South Coast Realty. And it was down in Orange County. And I said, well, Orange County is too far. I live in LA. I'm not going to go down there. Plus, there's a lot of other girls on the internet. And then he appealed to my ego. And he said, but you're special. Because in your ad, you sound like a real person, and you sound really nice. And it doesn't sound like it's going to be a transaction. And I want my first time with a girl to be special. And I was like, I know, I'm so special. I am.
Never trust the man who tells you you're special, right? Where's the rules?
I know. Terrible. So I told him, I said, well, if I go to Orange County, I'll let you know. But right now, I just can't make a special trip. It's a couple hours there, a couple hours back. I can't do it. So there came a day, I was an actress, and I got an audition, and they were auditioning in Orange County. And so I called him up, and I said, hey, can I speak to Robert Morgan? Now, normally when you call through a switchboard, they'll answer the phone, Tweedle Enterprises.
Yeah.
Yes, may I speak to Lynn, please? And then they'd pass me over to you, and I know you worked for Tweedle Enterprises because the secretary answered the phone that way.
Right.
But South Coast Realty, they didn't say, hello, South Coast Realty. This guy picked up and he went, yeah. And I thought, that's a weird way to answer the phone, because I'm so naive. And I said, hi, is Robert Morgan there? He's like, who? I said, Robert Morgan. He said, hang on. And then you hear all sorts of other chairs scraping floors and, noise and guys talking and things. And I'm thinking, boy, that's a noisy real estate company. And then this guy gets on and he goes, hello, this is Robert Morgan. And I said, hi, I think my name at the time was Natalie. I said, hi, this is Natalie. He goes, and then his whole demeanor changed. And he's like, yeah.
Oh, no.
Anyway, we made an appointment. There were lots of clues. All of them I let pass me right by. So one of them was on the way there. He called me like 4 times that day, which is no client does that. Never. They don't do. To tell me the directions step by step. And then you turn right. And then you turn left. I'm like, I know. I got it. It's okay. Thank you. Yes, I'm looking forward to seeing you. He reiterated the price again. So because it was 2 hours that I requested, because it was 2 hours to drive there. Yeah. And at that time, I made my price $400 for the first hour and $300 for the second. So it was going to be a $700 evening, which is a very good evening. So he reiterated the price. I said, yes, indeed. So I got there and I pulled up. Oh, as I'm driving there, I'm passing all these fast food places, Burger King, and In-N-Out. I'm passing all, and I'm hungry, and I'm thinking, okay, it's only 2 hours. Right afterwards, I'll go into one of those fast food places. And I never eat fast food, but the idea of fast food was like, oh, it's going to be so salty. And I'll have French fries in the car with ketchup in my lap. And it'll be so great. So I get there, and it's in front of this tiny, cracky motel called the, I forgot the name of it now. Anyways, it's a really old, weird named motel. And the blinking vacancy sign.
Oh, no, Psycho.
Well, I hadn't seen that movie, but yes.
You should have seen that movie.
No, I don't want to. It's too scary. So I pulled up into the parking place that was right in front of his door. And I check my makeup in the rearview mirror, because it's a 2-hour drive. And I'm like, okay, do I look okay? And I'm wearing an evening gown, the kind black velvet, like Jessica Rabbit. And I have my long red hair and my special, and I dressed up so nice, and I'm, all for him. And I get to his door, and there's moths kind of swarming the light above his door. And I'm thinking, well, my car's parked right here. So if anything goes wrong, I can just make a run for my car. But also, moths are a really good sign because they seek the light. So
Right.
this is like, I'm ridiculous. So
I'm like, everything inside me is screaming, go back to the fast food place, have the salty fries and leave this guy. This is not gonna work.
so true. Get the ketchup and run. you know. So I knock on the door, and all this time he's been, Robert Morgan, he can't wait to see me. I'm the most special girl in the whole wide world. He's and then please come to Orange County. And he opens the door, and there couldn't have been a colder look. It was so weird. And I thought, is this the same guy? He was dressed very, I don't even know how to say it. It was like a maroon sweater that was obviously polyester of some sort, and some polyester gray pants. And he just looked like the average guy you could see on a golf course or something, mid-30s, kind of early 40s, something like that, maybe a little older. I couldn't tell. He was just like, he was so very white.
Yeah.
Just so very white. Yeah. And I went in, and hi, I'm Natalie. It's so good to see you. God, it was a long ride. And I'm jump, talking because he's not saying anything. And I'm kind of scoping the room out. It's the polyester paisley bedspread, nylon bedspread, and the floor's got the old green nubby carpet, and there's no luggage. Like there's no luggage of his. So I'm thinking, okay, so he must have just rented it for the night for us. But on the nightstand was something I never saw. That was the first time every hackle in my body went up. It was a can of Hawaiian Punch and a bag of Fritos. And nobody,
What's creepy about that?
It's vending machine food, first of all.
Oh.
Second of all, none of my clients in my entire life had ever sat around waiting for me with a can of Hawaiian Punch and a bag of Fritos. As if they weren't waiting for a romantic time. They would usually have a bottle of wine or at least something,
Right.
They were anticipating me and a romantic evening, not just, I got to wait for this lady to come over and then chomp, 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 And on the bed was spread out like tons of newspaper, as if he had gone through the entire Sunday Times, just spread out everywhere, waiting for me. So he had been waiting a long time, which is unusual too.
Yeah.
It's just such a weird vibe at that moment. But he would close the newspapers, and we sit on the bed, and we start talking about, at the time there was a MCI, which was very much like AT&T. And they were horrible and terrible customer service and so forth. And so we started talking about that, and that broke the ice because we talked about the shit customer service everywhere. And then we were laughing and talking and somehow connecting. And I was like, okay, finally. About an hour and 10 minutes into it, I know we're going to have a sexual encounter, but he's starting to get really nervous. And I can sense that he thinks, oh my God, so much time has gone by. What did I do?
Yeah.
And he's getting antsy. And so just to make him feel better, I said, okay, why don't we do a little massage? I'm going to go change into something sexy. That way I don't get oil on my dress. You can get comfortable, and I'll come out and give you a massage. So I go into the bathroom. The tape thing is still on the toilet, because it's a cheap motel.
Oh, no. I'm like, get out of there, get in your car.
And there's like one little pee drops on it, and I'm like, this is so weird. And I come out, and it's cold in the room. And I ask him if I can put the heat on, and he says, yeah, it's over there. There's like that tin box that's by the window, and I'm cranking it, but no heat's coming out. So I'm really cold. And I'm in my pretty little lingerie with my stockings and my high heels, and my dress is wrapped over the side. And I climb astride him, my knees over his butt, and I start to massage him. And I notice as I'm massaging him, there is 3 round scars, almost like a triangle on his back.
So is he naked at this point?
No, he has on not tighty whities, but that material, that cottony tighty whitey look. Except they have the different colors, rainbow stripes all the way across.
Oh no!
So it's the weirdest tighty whities I ever saw. So I'm sitting on him like that, and I'm massaging him, and I see these 3 little arrows on his places on his back that look like circles. And as I bend down closer, I realized there's scars. And then I realized that maybe they're bullet holes. And I said to him, so I leaned down and I said, Robert, were you ever in a fight with a gun? And he said, huh? And I said, are these bullet holes? And he said, yeah. And I said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I mean, what happened? And he said, I was in a bar fight. And I said, really? Because, wow. I said, oh my God. And I was sitting on top of him and I had to stop because I thought, how terrifying that must be. And how much PTSD must you have if you were shot in the back, in your life? I didn't know yet anything about him. So I almost couldn't move on. I was really shook by it, and I started to cry and I said, I'm so incredibly sorry that this happened to you. So I bent down and I started to kiss each bullet hole. And he leaned up and kind of knocked me sideways. And he goes, hey, what's going to happen here? And I said, what do you mean?
Oh my God.
And he said, I think I would feel better if I had a condom. And I said, we don't need a condom right this second.
Yeah.
And he said to me, well, I would just feel better. I'm scared I'm going to get AIDS. And I said, well, this was during the AIDS era. And I said, well, Robert, you can't get AIDS from a massage. So we're okay right now. He goes, yeah, but just tell me, do you have condoms? I said, well, of course. I'm a girl of the 90s. And he said, well, I would just feel better if I had one. So I got him a condom and I tossed it over to him. And he pulls down his pants and he takes out his but it's not hard. And so he takes out the wrapper and he's trying to mush this wrapper on this mushy thing. And he's going one side, the other side. And I'm a little embarrassed for him, but also I'm like, oh no, oh boy.
This is bad.
Yes. Then he says, well, he said, if I ever get this thing on, would you give me a blowjob? And I said, well, Robert, I said, if you ever get that thing on, I will heartily consider it. And at that moment, he jumped up and ran into the bathroom, like fast, just jumped up and ran into the bathroom. And I was sitting there on the bed and I thought, where did he go? It was almost like if somebody has to throw up or something.
Yeah.
And he ran. And the next thing I know, I look at the bathroom door and then I hear the front door. And the front door has this little knob and it's going side to side to side. And I'm like, that's like a horror film. So I look back to the bathroom and I say, Robert, somebody's trying to break in, because now in my mind, it's Robert and I against some armed robber, who's going to kill us. And I'm like, Robert, someone's trying to break in. And the door bashes open. And then this blinding light happens and you hear this Polaroid shot and you hear these men yell, put your hands up, you're under arrest. Shit. And they had their guns drawn. Now I'm 5'4" or 3 or 2. And at the time I weighed like 101 pounds and I'm wearing lingerie. So they've got guns drawn and they've Polaroided me. And now I'm under arrest and everything in me just stopped.
Oh, man.
And it was as if I sunk underwater. And I felt like I was a dolphin caught in a tuna net, like they had the wrong kind of fish. Because I'm not a hooker, in my mind. In my mind, I'm like, I come and bring love and intimacy and kindness. And then maybe there's something sexual that goes on, but I'm not a hooker. They've got the wrong person. And so then Robert comes swaggering out. Now he's a totally different person.
Oh, no.
Now his name's not Robert Morgan. His name is Officer Rhodes. And he is all full of swagger. And he's like, goes into my bag and takes his $700 back and goes, you don't get to keep this. And then, and then we go through the whole rigmarole. And then there's a lot more to the story. But it was a Tuesday. I think it was a February 28th that happened. And it changed everything, of course, but I think up until that point, there was always, you just knew that there was this threat and you always lived under the radar because of it, because anybody could hurt you or turn you in. You could tell a close friend what you do and they might decide that's not for them. And they could turn you into your landlord, or they could turn you into somebody else who would kick you out of your apartment or kick you out of your job or, or whatever you were doing. So it was a lot of years living underwater, underground.
It's so Because it's funny, because as you're talking about it, and I'm like picturing it all, and I see him in his rainbow pants and his bullet walls and the blah, blah, blah. And this thing about that, there must have been a point for him where he's like, that he has to question whether, like, he's arresting a human. It's a human. Like, that point is so interesting.
He didn't say that. His partner did at one point. He left the room. They were going to go search my car because they were sure I had drugs, or like they had a stereotype in mind. And he wanted to know where my drugs were and, all these kind of things. And I'm like, I don't do drugs. And so they're going to go tear my car apart, which they did. And in the meantime, they left me in the room with this younger cop who was probably maybe late 20s, early 30s. And he's filling out paperwork. And he says to me, "Are you really a massage therapist?" And I said, "Well, I give massages." And he said, "No, but are you licensed?" And I said, "No." He said, "If you were licensed, I could have just given you a ticket."
Oh, wow.
And I said to Officer Rhodes, when later on, when he was walking me out to the car, which was about an hour and a half later, I said, "Pretend I'm a person. Just for a minute, just pretend I'm a person." Because he was just seeing me as this stereotype the whole night. Even when I was in jail, he would keep coming back and trying to find more of something I could have done. And what's my record? And I didn't have any. I've never been arrested before.
There has to be something about him, though, as well. Like, because I look at it from a police point of view and I go, right, okay, if I really want to make a bust on something, so I do this thing. Oh, it turns out that they call me, so actually the opportunity happens. Then I get to, in this journey, how much would I need this bust to be caught in a room only with my rainbow pants on, trying to put a condom onto a mushroom, right? Because I wanted to show power. It's so interesting because even though this episode is not really about the cards, it still does reveal about the person that you're with. Like, what story is going on in that head,
I thought about that a long time because obviously he changed my life.
In what way did he change your life? What do you mean?
Well, once you're arrested, it changes everything. You can't, there's so many things I couldn't do until let me go back to him for just a second. But, I thought about him and why he felt very self-righteous about it. Yeah. And he, at one point in the car, said to me, "Why do you do this?" And I said, "Money." And he said, "Well, this isn't a real job. Get a real job." And I said, "Well, this is my real job. Yeah. This is what I do." And he said something like, oh God, he said so many things, but he said something. And then I said, "Well, I would like to be able to afford to be a mother someday. If I have to be a single mother, I'd like to be able to afford that myself." And he said, "Oh God," he said, "then they breed too."
Oh, hello.
I know, but was a sense of like, in his mind, in his, I want to say white supremacist mind, machismo, just whatever he was. Oh, he said, "You don't know, I saved you. I've seen hookers like you dismembered in garbage cans more times than I want to remember." And I said, "Well, actually, the worst thing that ever happened to me in my working life is you." Wow. And, and so we just had this moment. And he also, I think, saw me as a little bit as a person, because the funny thing happened in his car. He had a non-marked Ford Taurus, and I was sitting in the passenger seat with the handcuffs in front of me on my lap. So as we were driving down the road, I'm looking at other people going home from work, chewing gum, stopping in the fast food places that I didn't get to go to. And I'm thinking, they don't know that I'm sitting next to a cop in handcuffs.
Yeah.
And when we got out of the car to walk up to the jail building, he stopped me. He said, "Oh, wait, come back here. I have to handcuff you behind your back." Apparently he had forgot, because I'm so not dangerous. Oh, that he had me handcuffed in the front. So he had to re-handcuff me in the back. I mean, he's a vice squad cop. Maybe because he got shot and they took him off whatever duties he was on before and put him on vice.
Yeah.
And what do vice squad cops do? They do gangs, they do drugs, they do gambling, and they do pretty girls who just need to make a living.
Yeah.
And occasionally clients,
You ought to wear better pants, though, to be fair. If your job is that you're going out, forget your Hawaiian Punch and your packet of Cheez-Its, get yourself some decent underwear. That's what happened.
Well, that's what you were talking about before. Men are like, I'm fine. I'm fine. She's got $700 lingerie on. I got my panties from Kmart.
It has made me think about that thing where you go, like, physically, if you're looking at someone's life and you go, what happened to you that you would come and do sex for money? Meanwhile, standing there with 3 bullet holes in your back. Like, there are signs in your life, maybe, that tell you you're going in the wrong direction. And it's interesting that he thought yours was wronger than his, you know?
Yeah, really. What you can't do after you get arrested or get a record is that, well, one, I used to volunteer to work with children in homeless shelters. So I would go in and hang out for the day, play games with them. And I wasn't allowed to do that anymore. I'm not allowed to be with kids.
Right.
Because, well, until it was dropped to a misdemeanor. But initially it was, what do you call it? A felony? Something. No, it was a misdemeanor, but it was something. Well, when they take you in, during the AIDS periods of time, they take you in. And one of the first things that happened was this woman who was a woman cop, I call her blonde ponytail because she had this huge blonde ponytail and this really tight uniform that she was just busting at the seams all over the place. And she looked at him and she said, "Hey, Rhodes, what do you got there? The golden triangle, huh?" And I'm like, "What does that mean?"
Yeah.
And he goes, $700. She goes, "Oh, wow. What you got going on down there, sweetheart?" I'm thinking, you guys are so crude. And your language is so, I'm thinking, their language is just terrible. You know, they would talk to a hooker that way. And then the next step after the blonde ponytail was fingerprints, which she did, and then you picture. But after that, you go to this desk and they take your blood. They just stick a needle.
What?
Yeah, they stick a needle in your hand and they take your blood and they say to you, well, he said to me, if you have AIDS, then you've endangered lives. And I'm like, well, I didn't even touch him. Like, I barely touched his bullet holes, you know? Yeah. We didn't kiss. There was nothing.
I think he was going to do more danger to himself with the rainbow pants and the condom and the thing that was going on in there.
He did a lot more touching of himself than I touched with him. So, yeah, I think my whole career as an escort, I started out knowing that it had to be secret, but I wasn't secretive. I told people. And then I got slapped back for it. And I was like, oh. And every time I got slapped back for it, I would go a little further down underground. But after this happened, I went really far underground. Yeah. I decided nobody can ever know. I started lying a lot about what I did, where I was. And I stopped telling even my closest friends because I was like, I'm just not going through this again. And I couldn't tell people that I was arrested because the people I did tell, who were friends, disappeared. You know, they kind of ghosted me for that period of time. I think I understand it because it's scary, you know, and nobody knows if you've never been arrested before. Nobody knows if the police are watching you or watching your friendship or, you know, people so misunderstand my business that they think, well, if I associate with her, who knows if a pimp will show up to my house, which is never the case.
Huggy Bear or somebody's going to appear.
I know. But if you think about it, like if you and I think about it in a different way, and we say, well, what if we had a friend who was dealing heroin for a living and they were dealing with the Mexican mafia? I don't know. I'm making all this up. And I probably sound really stupid right now. But what would we feel? Would we feel scared to hang around with them? I might be like, I don't know, who comes to your house?
Do you know, it's weird because I find where my morality comes into it. I don't think that my perspective is the same on sex as it is on drugs, right? And that actually that it depends on if your version of escorting had been that you target like teenage boys or something like that, then I'd be like, man, this is like not cool. I think, and it comes back to that legalizing prostitution thing, where you're like, it's not illegal to have sex, right?
It's not. Just illegal to get paid for it.
And actually then, when we make certain things legal, people think that it opens a watershed to it. Whereas with heroin, I'm like when I'm talking to my kids about drugs, I say to them, and nobody knows what's in this. You're taking somebody's word that is what it is, but you don't know what it is. And you may be dead after it. Mm-hmm. And so I would struggle with anybody who was dealing with that. I have to say, I really would. Whereas with what you've been doing in the escort industry is like, here's a penis, here's a vagina, this is how they work. Okay, right? Here's my index card box and my index of sex, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I know what you're saying, absolutely morally. I guess I thought to myself about it in terms of what would make me afraid of one of my friends. And I thought, well, there are certain things I would be like, I don't know what they're doing and who they're fraternizing with. And I think because so little is really known about my business, we know what's written by screenplay writers, and we know what's written in the movies, and we know what's written in TV.
Usually male ones.
Yeah, no, and it's usually written by men.
Yeah.
Or I think there's so much unknown. So doing this podcast, I think it's really, not only for that business, a really great gift to open it up and say, this is all it is.
Yeah.
This is just it. It's just about intimacy and love and romance and a little bit of craziness that we all are a little bit crazy.
Oh, a lot of crazy.
Of mine, 'cause she's the sweetheart of 6 other guys.
Well, that's all from us for this episode. I've been Lynn Ferguson talking to Sephe Haven. Join us again next time for another episode of My Index to Sex.
Of mine, 'cause she's the sweetheart of 6 other guys.
You have been listening to My Index to Sex, produced by Ferdal LLC. The music was performed by Chesney Hawkes, and you can learn more about Sephe Haven at sephehaven.com. Go to mitspodcast.com to check out the show notes for more details, including how to stay in touch, give feedback, and ask questions. All the best.